Look at this precious furry baby, a perfect angel. She is most definitely not an agent of chaos and mischief. Wrong! She thinks she should be everywhere at once, and if you close a door, she will make you pay. I present to you Exhibit A. This is the wall right outside of the bathroom. If you go into the bathroom without her, if you leave her behind, she will attack the wall and she'll run away and she will pretend like she was never there. Now, I do know that the responsible thing to do in this situation would be to patch it up and repaint it. However, I want to live in a world where all of my problems can be solved with quilts. And if that's ever going to happen, it needs to start now, and it needs to start with me. Now let's start with my favorite part of any quilting project, fabric. Let's see what's in my stash. I'm going to use the Furry Criminal as inspiration for this mini quilt, so I need to pull some gray, pink, and white. I need to refine this palette because the pinks are not playing well together. Some are more muted and some are more saturated. I also need to narrow down to one gray and one white. This is one of my absolute favorite quilting books. I check it out from my local library all the time, and I've been looking for a copy of my own, but I can't find it anywhere. It's absolutely full of great scrap quilts, lots of different skill levels, and lots of different styles. Anyway, I've been looking for a reason to make this quilt by Cheryl Johnson for a really long time, and today is the day. It's called Half Square Hashtags, and I'm obsessed. Okay, here's kind of an interesting choice I need to make. So I went with sort of these more muted pinks as opposed to the brighter, more saturated pinks that I had picked out. But I'm going to include this fabric too, and it's ombre. So down here it's lighter and more muted, and over here it's more saturated and darker. So I have a choice. I can cut my squares mainly from the muted side or mainly from the saturated side. Or I can cut along here and get a little bit of everything. So just for a better visualization, here I have the two options, and here is my color palette. So you can kind of see that the colors are popping up off of this color. There's a lot more contrast, whereas this is blending in a little bit more with those pinks. Not perfectly, they're not matchy-matchy by any means, but the whole point of this pink here is to be sort of an accent. So everywhere there are these blue squares, that's going to be this fabric. So I could go for extreme contrast, something that blends in a little bit more, or I can use both of them and get sort of a twinkly ombre effect in the quilt itself. So I could maybe do from muted to dark, or I can sprinkle them in randomly. But I think what I'm going to do is get a little bit of everything instead of just one or the other. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to support this channel, check out my merch shop and buy me a coffee page. Okay, let's get back to the video. Last night I was in the mood for a little bit of late night sewing, so I went ahead and finished these 9 patches. Pretty simple, nothing special, run-of-the-mill 9 patches. So I've got 4 of those total for this little mini quilt. Now I have to work on my half square triangles. So there are a ton of half square triangles in this one. I think I counted 96. And normally I would do all of these 2 at a time, but when I was cutting out my pieces, I didn't remember to add a little bit of buffer so I could trim down. So everything is already cut. I can't redo all of this, but it has to be sewn very precisely and accurately for me to get the sizes that I need. So I'm going to be actually cutting them on the diagonal and then sewing them together one by one. And they'll come out less than 2 inches. I've run into a little bit of an unexpected problem with my half square triangles. So first of all, they're supposed to go with one of these strips in the middle, and they need to be the same width because they're each a third of the block. So it's the same width. I trimmed it down exactly how much it was supposed to be trimmed down. And then these are supposed to be sewn together to have 3 there. And you can probably already see what the problem is. There's way too much fabric here. Now, one of the key details for half square triangles is that they're squares. So I have to leave them the same height and the same width. And as you can see, they are not coming together to the size that I was expecting them to come to. They have about a little less than 1/4 of an inch extra down here at the bottom. So these squares, these half square triangles, are cut to be 1 7/8 square. So I cut 1 6/8 square, 1 3/4, and it is way too short. So there is no in between here. I have to cut them so that they're just a little bit too big. So here's the very first block that I sewed together, and I was trying to sort of split the difference with the extra fabric, and I ended up cutting a little of this strip, which is actually the right size. And so this block is just a little bit short right there. I've tried upping my seam allowance just a little bit, and it made a little bit of a difference, but not like a terrible lot of difference. So each one of these blocks are going to be a little off. I think I'm going to make sure that these blocks are lined up with the top, so these ones are going to be a little off down here, and it might make my half square triangles look a little wonky once they're in the finished quilt. So all around a sort of frustrating little situation. Luckily, all of the math is working out just fine for these half square 9 patchy things. They come together pretty easily. So I sew these 3 together, these 2 together, and then I sew the rows together. So it's pretty simple, it just looks a little complicated. Now here's a quick look at how this is all going to come together. I'm going to start with my 9 patch. Then next there is the 4 half square triangle blocks that go around the 9 patch. And then to fill in the edges, because this is a very short mini quilt, to fill in the edges, I have 2 small little guys for the corners and a little bit bigger triangles to fill in the bigger gaps. And then down here, to connect this set to the next set, I have my half square triangle 9 patch thing, and it'll continue on down like that. To be absolutely honest, at this point, I think that I did go a little bit more elaborate than I needed to go, especially because it's going to be in a place where no one's going to see it, and there is the possibility that as soon as my cat sees it, she's going to rip it off the wall. So it's a little bit more elaborate, and I also wish that I had used maybe a smaller color palette, maybe 1 or 2 pinks instead of all of this, just to make it seem more unified. But I've gone too far, so I have to keep going. I can't make any changes here. The overwhelming thought I have when looking at this quilt is, why didn't I make some samples? I always make samples, and if I had this time, I could have resized the block in a way that made more sense before I cut my fabric and I committed to measurements that were illogical. My very next thought is, I'm so glad I chose a bunch of fabrics that make it look super busy because it hides a lot of my mistakes. But realistically, in the long run, it might not matter. None of the mistakes or miscalculations or even the effort that I put into it, because my precious little kitty, innocent little angel, might rip it off the wall before I even upload this video. Now, let's look at some mock-ups. Thanks for spending time with me today, quilters. If you want to support this channel and help me buy supplies and materials for future videos, please visit my Buy Me a Coffee page linked in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss upcoming videos. And I'll see you again real soon. Bye!